We're recording. Feel any different? Hi, everybody, and welcome to our second edition of the Baby Boomer and Gen X Parents Guide to Millennials and all the generations after that, the digital generation. And the next three blabs are going to be really interesting because we're going to break down all the three major components and maybe a fourth that influence the next generation. And today's influence was number one on my list, and that is Star Wars and science fiction-driven toys and TV shows and things like that. Once again, I'm Brad Szollose. I'm one of your co-hosts. I am the author of Liquid Leadership, and I wrote that as a business book to help businesses understand this next generation, but to also motivate a multi-generational company. You know, how do you get that workforce culture working together? And today, my colleague, co-host, my amazing friend, Susie Miller. Susie, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself. You are awesome, by the way.
Thank you,
Brad. We had a phone call earlier, right?
Feelings mutual. We really do have a mutual admiration society. My name is Susie Miller, and I am the Better Relationship Coach, and I help people create better relationships in 30 days or less. I work with professional and personal relationships and just really feel like relationships are the currency of today. So why not learn to build great ones? And it's interesting how Brad and I got connected. It was really because he had that millennial business mind and I had that millennial relationship mind, and we thought, let's pair up and let's see what we can create. So good to be here.
Yes, excellent. So we're going to dig in today. Obviously, I said Star Wars, but everything changed from 1977 forward. And the number one box office movie in 1977 was Star Wars. And Star Wars changed everything. Before that, we all went to the movie theaters to see Westerns, and we saw detective thrillers or Charles Bronson, some tough guy movies. But after 1977, boom. Da-da, da-da-da-da. Yeah. So there's part of the original poster and all that. And what happened, a lot of people don't realize this, but Star Wars changed the way we watch cinema. It changed our cultures around the world. And if you were in Guam, you saw Star Wars. And somebody argued with me. They said, oh, come on, Brad, you know, it was Star Trek. And if you're a traditionalist, you would probably say Buck Rogers. But the reality is those were seen in the industrialized nations. To a new generation, born after 1977, Star Wars comes first. And it was seen in non-industrialized nations. Like if you were in India or Guam, you saw Star Wars around back then. If you were in Australia or Canada, you saw Star Wars. If you were in Guam or Puerto Rico, you saw Star Wars. So cinema, from that point on, changed. And even the noted the theoretical physicist, Dr. Michio Kaku, he actually said on the Prophets of Science Fiction, he said Star Wars initiated a paradigm shift. So do you remember when you went to see Star Wars for the first time, Susie?
I do. I actually do. I was in 9th grade on a date with my boyfriend, and we went to the theater and sat there. And, you know, science fiction was kind of what the not cool kids read and watched, and, you know, we made fun of them, unfortunately, which we apologize to now. They're making heads and tails over us with all their technology. But I remember sitting there and being fascinated by a couple things. One, the technology and just the possibility of the imagination that could actually happen. And the other thing that really struck me was the story of the underdog, the story of somebody little and small and who could really make a difference. And I think it opened the door to, I remember then seeing the second one, and ironically, I guess, you know, 8 years later, I remember sitting in line the month before I got married, literally camped out with coffee and donuts with some friends to see, you know, Return of the Jedi. So it was a phenomenon that we just embraced. It was fabulous.
Well, I remember seeing the first one, and I took my mom to see it. I never wanted to go to the movies with my mom because she wouldn't shut up. She'd talk through the whole movie, you know. So she sat there and watched the whole thing. We were fascinated, and I'm 14 years old, and I'm all excited. And we leave the theater, and she looks at me, and she goes, why do we have to go into space? It's so dangerous up there. And I'm like cracking, but my mom took it seriously. But people started to believe in themselves more. The little guy, as you said, became the hero in the world, in the way they dealt with things. And from that moment on, and this is the thing, this is the key, our top 10 movies all since 1977, the top 10 blockbusters were all science fiction driven. You know, yeah, if you look at Terminator, Back to the Future, by the way, the other day was Back to the Future Day. So Terminator, Back to the Future. I had a list here. There was Avatar. All these movies, even Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, were all about an underdog, a child, a little person who used technology or magic to battle adults, big people. And this became the story not only in cinema, but also on television. Remember Doogie Howser?
The 12-year-old doctor, absolutely.
16, 12-year-old, I wouldn't let him.
But it really began the era of possibility, of outside the box thinking, of what can we do, what can we imagine. And, you know, again, I go back to that comment that I made yesterday about the speech that President Kennedy made, where he said, we're going to go to the moon in the next 10 years, and we're going to do it with technologies and metals that haven't even been invented yet. And so you have that kind of bizarre statement made, and now we have a generation of kids and then their parents who are really wrestling with that anything's possible, because that was not how we were raised. We were raised that you are on a track and you better live in it and do the best in it. And, you know, Star Wars opened the door to, I could be Iron Man, you know?
Well, boomers, how were we raised? I mean, if you're a cuss boomer, you were told every day that by the year 2000, technology was going to solve all our problems. We were supposed to be living in a dome city by now, on the moon. I was supposed to be riding around in a jetpack.
The Jetsons.
You know? I was supposed to be, I was supposed to be commanding the Starship Enterprise and battling Klingons in the known universe, Captain's Log. Because I'm a Star Trek fan.
Oh, go ahead, Brad. Do it for all of us. Go ahead, do your impressions. Go ahead. Captain's Log.
Captain's Log, Stardate 5408. Me and the crew have traveled back in time. But think about it. A lot of NASA scientists actually said the reason they became NASA scientists is because of Star Trek. And then a new generation, if you go Google this, our latest astronauts that have been going up to the International Space Station and stuff, they've had photos retouched where they're dressed as Jedi Knights. So
this is hysterical. My daughter, who is 28, sent a text out to my son, who's 25, myself and my husband, and our other kids, and said, hey, when Zach gets home for Christmas, do you all want to go see Star Wars together? And literally called me today and said, we got to buy tickets. They're going to sell out. And it's this whole resurgence. I mean, we had Star Wars Legos that my kid played with. I have a picture, literally, I got to bring it next time, Brad, of my kids dressed up for Halloween, like Star Wars, R2-D2 and all of that. It really is a phenomenon that shaped their lives.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I look back on it, like if I mentioned to my nephew, well, when was the first time you saw Star Wars? He's 24. He can tell me the exact moment he saw Star Wars. It was that important. But,
I just remember because it was a really cool date.
Did you make out? Come on, be honest.
Of course. Until Harrison Ford came on the screen, and then it was all about Han Solo for me. And I remember, this is really funny. I remember our kids, we had a son our son had a really good friend. They were the same age, and it was Halloween. I'm going to find this picture. And they both wanted to be Luke Skywalker, and his friend was blonde. And I was like, Zach, Han Solo's so much cooler. He's sexy. You just want to be Han Solo, and convinced him that he was way better than Luke Skywalker.
It's funny. Joey. Well, let's get back to a little bit of this discussion, because this marked the beginning of a huge shift where Star Wars showed us how to use ubiquitously all this technology that we're using today. Because when Star Wars came out, we had a rotary dial phone, if you remember.
And a long cord.
Yeah, we had everything was analog at that time, but Star Wars was actually showing us how Wi-Fi network would work, how robots would interact with us, lightsabers and technology and all this. Now, 90% of those devices, even holograms, we have today. They are working on the lightsaber. We don't have the Millennium Falcon yet. They're working on that, but to a new generation, Star Wars came first, then Star Trek, and Star Trek is kind of like the boomer brand, the old guys, movie. But a new generation was dragged to the theater because boomers raised millennials, and this new generation was dragged to the movie theater to see Star Wars for the first time as well, and when they brought them out again and all this. So you have a generation that has grown up with Star Wars as well.
Well, and the thing I think that's so interesting about that relationally for parents and boomers and millennials.
Sorry, Susie, you keep getting a poor internet signal. I don't know if anybody in your house is downloading a movie. But,
nope, I'm the only one on. I'll see what I can do. I might have to log off and log back on. Do you want me to do that?
If you want to, I might. Yeah, if you want to. I mean, it keeps coming back in a minute. It usually does if I click on it.
So the thing I was trying to say was that as boomer parents, we watched Star Wars, and then it came back, and we took our kids to watch Star Wars. And I can remember actually saying to my son, hey, this was cool when I was young. You know, I wish I'd kept the figurines, that kind of thing. Because, you know, when Luke came back out, he was really buff in the 90s. But it was a place that parents and millennials could actually connect. And again, here we have this, you know, 20 years later, my kids are calling me going, hey, Mom, let's go to the movies versus us dragging our kids to be part of our life. And so it's really fun to me to see how there's so much talk about boomers versus millennials, or the angst, the anger, the problems. And I'm always looking for the good parts.
Well, you're breaking up a little bit. We're going to have to I just lost Susie. She's going to sign back in. Jim, if you'd like to sit in the hot seat, we're going to get you ready. There we go. I'm going to approve you. Boom. You know what else Star Wars did? Is that Jimmy Palmer?
There it is, man. Casual Friday.
You got it.
Sporting my Mastermind of the Chesapeake T-shirt, Brad. Boop, boop.
Nice. That's nice. Hey, did you batten down the hatches on the boat yet, or are you still going out?
It is empty, but I'm praying for Sunday to be nice. We'll take one more day and check out the foliage if we can. But Sunday is the last official day. I will be in mourning for quite a while. Oh,
that is funny.
It's my mug.
Yeah. She is so awesome.
By the way,
awesome.
You and Susie left out a very important detail when you said how you connected. It was like, yeah, he was this. I think you left something out there, buddy.
We wanted to bring you on and talk about this, and that is that Susie and I, and here she comes.
Hey,
Hi,
Jim.
Susie.
Hey, Jim. Love the T-shirt. If you need a skipper, just sign me up for Sunday. I'll be a skipper.
Okay.
Or what's it? Not a skipper. What's Gilligan?
Now, we left out a little detail, Susie, and that is, how did we meet?
We met at a really amazing business conference hosted by one of the best business coaches I've ever known. His name is Jim Palmer, and we met last September at the Dream Biz Academy in Philadelphia, actually. And I think we were the oldest and coolest people in the room.
Oh, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
So
it was a good meeting.
If you're going to ask me about Star Wars, this is going to be a short conversation.
He was busy working. He was a working
man.
No,
I was busy watching Smokey and the Bandit, not Star Wars.
While you were working at the bike shop, dreaming of buying a Trans Am, right?
What did your kids watch, though?
Yeah, looking at my new lady.
Jim, what did your kids watch?
What did my kids watch? Homer Simpson, the best I can think of. I don't know. I mean, it was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then it was Ghostbusters.
Yep. And Transformers and all of the possibility things.
Yeah, Christmas we had the Ghostbuster house with the fire pole. We had the backpacks. I mean, we had it all.
Well,
that's awesome.
This is kind of important to understand, because from 1977 on, the toys changed too, because toys started to be more interactive and they were connected to movies and cartoons. And a TV show didn't go on unless it was going to sell a toy back in the 80s, if you remember. And
I'm gonna give you some props for that great mug.
Yes. I know. I showed Brad. Look at that. Yee! I won't show you what's in it.
That's the mug that goes along with my book, and so they're just joking about that. People, just go ahead, Brad. Jim's being a rabble-rouser.
I'm good. You can ask me anything you want.
My signal is a little. I'm hearing in and out.
No, you didn't.
I just lost.
Did
Jim.
that not go out over the airwaves?
Do it again,
Brad. Feel free to ask anything you want. I'm here to serve.
There is a really nice endorsement written in that book by you, Brad, and by Jim, and that's part of why I'm on this call, because I love relationships and I'm a bit of a relationship expert. So, Brad, go back to what you were saying about how toys changed our kids and changed this generation, because I think it's a place where the parents are struggling.
Well, we had kids now who could sit with Speak and Spell with them, and they didn't have to, boomers had the electronic babysitter, the TV. I'm getting feedback from your speakers, Jim.
Okay, I don't know if I'm going to put on, I choose not to wear headphones like Susie because it'll mess up my hair.
Just wear this.
Yeah,
wear this.
1 second, I'll see if this works, hold on.
Yeah, I plug my little headset. It's a little earpiece headset, and then I have my good mic. So
it's too short. All right, you're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah, I'll do the best I can.
There we go.
But anyways,
you kick me off if I'm too annoying, because it's my Friday anyway.
And he's not on his boat. So he's not a happy
working
man.
Friday.
I'm going to ask you a question while Brad, we've lost your video, so you might have to. Yeah,
Me?
I can't see you.
I've lost your video.
Okay.
I can't see you guys.
I can see everybody.
But that's because you rock. Okay, so here's the thing. When you think about the work and coaching you do, Jim, with boomers, cuspers, Gen Y, millennials, do you see a difference? There's Brad.
Well, there is a difference because people in different generations, first of all, communicate differently. They receive feedback and information differently. I mean, I find I can be much more straightforward, sometimes what I call tough love with people of a different generation. I think it might be a broad brushstroke, but people of a younger generation, you can put whatever label you want, tend to be a little more thin-skinned, in my opinion. Yeah. They're not used to that kind of. Maybe that's just experience, and maybe it's not a generational thing, but that's what I believe. Oh,
I think it's a generational thing, and we will address that. I think in the next couple Blabs when we get to parenting. But let's go back to toys. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, this is a generation that was raised on Speak and Spell and toys that interacted with them, and video games, which we're going to talk about in the next Blab. And what happened is they were able to sit in their own rooms and have all these interactions, and even by 1984, they were doing multiplayer online role-playing games and things like this. So they were working in teams. And so they didn't really have what boomers had. We were taught to sit down, shut up, and listen. And all our devices are based on that. Movies, television, radio, reading. It's all based on sit down and don't move.
School?
Yeah, school.
There's schooling.
Exactly. What
I
about
read
you,
yesterday.
Susie?
I read yesterday that, and maybe it was you who told me this, that we now have an attention span. We used to have an attention span of 12 seconds, and now the average attention span is 7 seconds, and even a goldfish has 8 seconds. So we're actually
evolving backwards. I think I'm demonstrating a short attention span right now.
I need
something to do here. I need something to do.
I got to bump you off in a minute.
I'm getting rambunctious, pal. It's been a long week.
What was your question, Brad?
No, I was just, what do you remember? Because you raised kids, but remember, what was your experience growing up? What was your favorite game as a kid?
Well, we had real games then. They had boards and cards and things you had to hold. So I loved playing cards. It was a great fun. I love playing cards in canasta. And I distinctly remember Operation with the tweezers,
yes,
and that kind of stuff. Too. But we were told to go outside. There was 5 of us. We, in the summer, we were expected to read and to play and do our chores, of course. But there was this idea of go amuse yourself. Go find something to do. If in my house, if I said I was bored, my mom was like, "You got a brain. Get out of here." Yeah, and so we would take off in the morning. We wouldn't show up until we knew we had to be home before, like 15 minutes after the street lights went on. And so we played all over the place. This was before children were stolen. And so we were busy making up our own games and imagination. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in the next Blab. But now everything's shifted, the way we play, the way we thought of the hero in our society. And kids now kind of had stories where they could fight and battle adults. And that's what they did. Yeah, Harry Potter was a big part of that for our kids. Hi, Yusuf. Welcome. Some of your background noise is a little loud, so.
welcome to the show. Go ahead, Yusuf. Sounds like the connection's still.
Yeah, we lost him.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead, Susie. So, how did you do with your kids? Did you notice a difference in the way they did stuff?
And we did both. I really made them go outside and play. I was kind of one of those tyrant mothers that made them listen and do what I said. So we did the outside stuff. But yeah, I remember specifically 2 things. I remember when our oldest daughter, who just turned 30, was 4 years old, and we bought her this huge big bird, and the beak moved. First it was Big Bird from Sesame Street, and it was an audio book, and he talked as he read the book. And that was a huge, expensive toy, and that was the beginning of speaking toys. We had toys that spoke. And then fast forward, our son, I can remember going down to the basement. We had a media movie room, and he had his headset on, and he was playing video games with somebody in England. I was like, well, how do you know this person? He's like, oh, it's Bob from England. He's up, we're playing together. And all of my mother instincts were like, are we sure? And so give me the headset. Are you really Bob?
Yeah.
But it was so different, and I remember thinking it's a world I didn't even understand. They would play video games, and we had a big screen that you could split like yours.
Yeah.
We could see 4 of you, and they would want me to play just so they could laugh at me, running Luigi off the...
That's cool. Hey, we got Bill joining us. Hi, Bill.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good,
good.
Okay?
My audio all right?
Have you noticed? Yes, you sound perfect. Look great.
Awesome.
How did Star Wars influence you and your kids?
Well, you know what? I guess I'm a Generation Xer. My mom and dad were baby boomers, but I do remember being in, I think it was 4th or 5th grade, and Return of the Jedi was coming out, and I had the books. I wanted the toys, and I guess the biggest thing or takeaway that I get from Star Wars is that sense of adventure. That there's so much more out in the world besides my little town. But yeah, I had that kind of upbringing where we went out at the beginning of the day, especially in summertime.
Yeah.
We rode our bikes all day. And you didn't really have to worry about keeping the doors locked.
Yeah.
But now I have a son, an 18-year-old son. He's in college, and I also have an 8-year-old son.
God bless.
And thank you. This new movie that's coming out, it's allowing me to connect with my 8-year-old.
That's the key.
That I never thought I would be able to, because I had the Millennium Falcon. When my mom hit the lottery for a small amount of money, she brought me the Millennium Falcon. And now my son, he has a Lego Scout Walker. No, the Lego AT-AT. And I do it with him, We talk about the Force, and I'm your father.
And you go like this, just listen to me. I look at my kids, I go, just listen. Like Obi-Wan, just listen. You will obey. It didn't always work. What's really funny is when we moved, we downsized because we're now empty nesters. The only thing our son wanted us to keep was this huge, 3-gallon tub of Legos and his Millennium Falcon. So I still have, the Millennium Falcon that's, not easy to pack. And he's like, I need that, Mom, someday.
Right.
Yeah. It's got to be worth money. I want to give it to my kids. You have fed me for the last time.
Yes. Have you guys seen the Walmart commercials?
Say that again?
I've seen some of them.
Have you seen the old man sitting on the porch talking to his, I think his grandson? Did you see that one? I love that one.
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Oh,
tell him about it, Bill.
The little boy is sitting on the porch, and the grandfather says, "Oh yes, Jedi. They're wise old men. They like to be comfortable, so they wear robes. Because I think it's uncomfortable clothes lead to anger. Anger leads to something.
War.
And that leads to the dark side of the Force." But they're on YouTube. All the Walmart commercials that are in relation to this new movie coming out. It also describes kind of like the story that you guys are telling on this Blab.
Okay.
Transcending amongst generations, but
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna hop off here. Let somebody else hop on. It was nice talking with you guys.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate
it.
Bill. Email both of us. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Thank you, buddy.
I will do. I'm gonna follow.
Great.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Guys, I'm gonna have to roll in a couple minutes. I don't know if you got another question for me, non-Star Wars related, or just you want me to flash Susie's book again?
Thank you for flashing my book, but better than flashing other things. This is my thought. or a question for you, Jim. You have a millennial. I happen to know your daughter, Jess, pretty well, and we've become friends. And she is not your classic millennial. She's very driven. She's more like our first child and has a business and a family. And so she doesn't kind of meet the criteria. Do you have anything that you feel like, well, this is why, or is it just who she is or how she was raised? What makes her different?
You know, sometimes when I'm doing interviews and they ask me, there's some different shows like about restarting, changing your life, what you went through instead of the normal business show. And so, I tell my story about, unemployment, cancer, going through all that. And one of the benefits of that is that my kids got to see what it's like, first of all, to struggle, right? So they saw both sides of me. They also know that what it's like to step up and assume responsibility for your own self, because my girls were 13 when I lost my job, and then I was unemployed for 15 months, and I had cancer in the middle of that. So we had like no money. And at 13, they wanted to do maybe dance lessons, go to the mall, go to the movies, go skating, bowling, whatever it looked like. And they had to go get a job to do that. So there was a real correlation very early on that I'm grateful for all my kids, that if you want something, you got to go earn it. So they have this earn it, I'll give you a very relevant today example. So we always communicate, and that's part of the technology, right? So Jessica and her twin sister Amanda and Nathan and Lucy and Steph and I are going to meet in New York somewhere, kind of like 3 or so plus hours from where we all live, and we're just going to spend the weekend together, right, next weekend. And they almost insisted, but I won out, that we're adults now. Let's split the cost of we're renting a cabin in the woods somewhere. It's going to be cool. Actually, we're going to Woodstock, by the way. I think that's really cool. Talk about, the other early generation. We're going to go to Woodstock, New York, and be in a little cabin and go check out the little town. But anyway, I said, no, I got the cabin. No, we'll share it. We'll split it. Blah, blah. I said, I'll tell you, here's the deal. All you're going to do is bring a smile and bring the food. I'll cover the rest. So they say you will be well fed and well loved. So, but, my point in telling that story is Jessica, I think, has the maturity and mindset of somebody 10, 15, 20 years older than her. I mean, she's killing it as an entrepreneur. Yeah. But I think that goes to modeling by watching. Your kids are always watching. They're going to do what you do. They're going to say what you say. Steph reminded me of that early on when I had a potty mouth. Your kids are going to start talking like that if you don't knock it off, and things like that. So I don't know. Does that answer your question, or is that too long?
No, it does. I think part of it is modeling. I think part of it's personality. And I do think the experiences our kids went through really did shape them. And actually, we are going to talk a lot about that. I think it's in the 4th one, when we talk about child-centered parenting and how that shaped our kids for today. So
there's so much going on, and I'm not going to take your show in a negative direction, but what kids are going through today with parents and schools and things like that. I just saw like a couple of weeks ago, you can't even play dodgeball anymore. I mean, a rubber ball, like the most it's going to do if it hits you in the head is go, ow, that hurt. They canceled dodgeball. They're canceling everything except just go sit there. And do nothing.
And there's a whole new.
There's almost
just do your.
It's really frustrating, and I think there's just such a well, I said I wouldn't go negative, so I won't. Okay. So, but anyway, no, I was going to say there's such an entitlement mentality that I think is pervasive, and it seems to be in the younger generation. And I don't know why. Brad's going to be the expert on why that is, when that shift is, but. I mean, people my age or younger, like you two, young pups, we knew we take responsibility for what we want and what we want to accomplish. We don't look to or blame somebody else. Right. I don't know where that started, Brad.
Well, and Brad's going to go into that. Actually, I'm going to interrupt and say, let's save that because we have a whole blab just around that piece.
You mean this isn't the only blab with you guys?
No, it's a series, and you get to learn. But
how do I subscribe so I don't miss it?
Just subscribe to us on Blab.
There you go. Just go to us on Blab. Listen to you. You're so good. Thank you, Jim, for joining us.
Hey, it was a lot of fun on my No Work Friday. Thanks a lot, guys.
Jim, I want to apologize. I was going to bring up Miami Vice, so please forgive me.
What? I'm here. Well, let's talk Miami Vice. Ask me anything you want. Hey, actually, Don Johnson was on Jimmy Kimmel. Of course, he's got like another show now, but
Well, we'll let you
Man.
go, but honestly, Miami Vice influenced how we dressed and how we got casual, and
And our
everything
hair,
shifted.
the mullets,
Money.
I got to show you something. So,
the
I mean,
mullets.
I love everything about the boat that I got, but one of the main things, and there's a lot I love about it, but I don't know, does that reflect or can you see my boat?
I see it. Nice.
So this thing right here, right there.
That
the guy
bar.
he's selling me the boat, and he goes, well, that's a, Jim, that's a radar arch. You could put a radar. I said, that's not a radar arch. He goes, what is that? That's my Miami Vice. That's my Don Johnson cool as crap arch. And that's why I bought the boat.
Nice.
One of the big reasons.
And on
That's
that
awesome.
note,
Look at that
thank
thing.
you. Thank you, Jim.
Miami Vice. All right, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks, buddy.
Go ahead and share a little bit more about video games, because I'm not video games, movies, because I do feel like, that shift changed how we look at, if you think about Smokey the Bandit and Dirty Harry and the other movies that we were raised on, it was the tough guy, it was the slick guy, the handsome guy, and Star Wars, and then the others really, Luke was kind of mealy and a bit of a nerd and a bit of a whiner, and so I feel like that changed where suddenly, and I hate to say this, but the geeks and the nerds became, it was cool to be science fiction guy.
Yeah. And that goes back to, our original message. I remember when I was into Star Trek, I was a weirdo, and it was like one or two people in my school may have liked it. And then all of a sudden we shifted, and now everybody was into it. Science fiction went mainstream, and science fiction actually became fact, science fact. And we have a lot of those devices today.
So I'm here. So you think movies made a huge difference in the way even our toys changed?
Yes, because the technology got better and it began to integrate into the toys. Video.
Totally lost you, Brad. I don't know what happened. I've lost Brad. Can anybody see or hear Brad? Okay. Can anybody see and hear me? Because I can't see and hear anything. Okay. You can see and hear. Great. Scott K75. Can I guess what the 75 has to do with? You want to join in here? Come into one of our seats. I'd love to have you be part of our conversation. Age, of course. Not that you're 75, but that was probably a birth year, right? Do you remember when you first saw Star Wars? Okay, I'm trying to let Scott in. Are you in? Hey, Scott. Say it again. Good.
Yeah, so I can't remember I know I did see it when I was a kid, but I just can't remember like when it was. I probably came out, and I saw it right when it came out.
Mm-hmm. Do you have kids now?
I have two girls, 8 and soon to be 10. So
are they at all into the Star Wars or anything like that?
Not really. I got them caught up, and they're all game for going to see the next one. So I already hits and everything like that, and they're excited.
Right.
Not into it as so I'm trying to get
your headphones. That's fine. That's what we love about Blab. It's kind of cash, so it's not your most produced, video, but you get a chance to interact and all that kind of stuff. Let me ask you this. One of our kids, our daughter, we have 3 and they're all grown now. And I talk about our son being very into Star Wars, but our daughter was not, our middle daughter. She actually ended up loving Harry Potter. And she, hold on, see if I got Brad calling me. She had not liked reading. And all of a sudden she started reading because Harry Potter became the thing. Did your daughters do that?
Last year in school, my daughter's now in 4th grade, my oldest one. They were reading Harry Potter in school, and that got her into the story. So when she got finished reading a book, she got to see the movie. She's starting to see the kind of differences, and she's forming her own opinions about, whether she likes a book more or the movie. my wife just took them to see Matilda, the production play. After they've seen they've read the books, they've seen the movie, and then when they saw the play, my wife was kind of gutted that they weren't into it so much, because they're like, it's not like the book.
It's not like the book.
It's not like the movie, or this was better, or that was better. So it was interesting. It was actually somewhat of an adult conversation, and they were forming their own opinions about it and things like that. So it was really cool to see that.
You know, we did that with our kids. I wanted them to read before they saw the book, because I believe in reading and your own imagination. But what I noticed over time is that so many books that I grew up on were being made into movies, and people were seeing those thinking they understood the book. And it was a really big, again, deal in terms of people, or our kids, really seeing the reality of video. I'm getting a terrible echo. That's okay. Can you plug in your set at all, or turn it down?
I got my headphone. Oh,
okay.
You're probably hearing.
I'm hearing me in your speakers. That's better. So the reality is that video and movies really shaped our kids to think that they now get their stories that way. We got our stories through reading. They get their stories through either video games or video online, and now with YouTube and reality TV, there's really not a need to read. I love and think it's really important to read, but our kids tend to find their storyline in videos. Would you agree?
Well, yes, and also taken from that, what they see on TV is there. See, like, okay, I was raised around Disney stuff and things like that. I thought for a while, okay, the girls, they can watch the Disney Channel, but Disney Channel has morphed into this kid that backtalks and rude and snide comments and things like that, and they think that is how you're supposed to act,
right?
And I, I'm like, I turned that all off. I'm like, this is not how you talk to people. This is not how you talk to me or your sister, things like that. And, my daughter, who's 9, is going to be 10 next month. She's going on, like, she wants to grow up too fast. I mean, she thinks she's 16 or 18 or something like that. And she's growing too fast, maybe for me. I'm trying to slow her down, but and a lot of what she sees either on YouTube or TV shows, I can see them trying to they start to mimic that, and how they
absolutely
interact with each other, and
it's interesting to me. My nieces are about your kids' age, a little older, and the whole idea of social media and the reality of how much more they have to deal with, that we as parents even have to monitor. So that is a tough thing. Yeah. All right, I'm trying to see how to get Brad back in here. Hold on one second. He's, I'm going to try to kick him out. I can't because he's a host. Click on and approve me. I did.
And I was listening for a while, and a lot of that stuff was true about, like, when I was growing up, I was like that last guy with, I was out riding bikes, building jumps. We made our own games, like with our bikes. We thought we were like playing like we were in the movie Tron, and had little frisbees, and we were throwing those out at each other and stuff. And street lights were the cue to go home. I've done that with my girls out here. It's like, and I used to, for a long time, like where our house is, we see down a long street, and that's where a lot of kids are. So I would sit out there and just watch them, and I kind of feel like you got to be out there. My dad, they never watched us out playing, but its times are different.
They really are.
My dad would step out the door, and he had this whistle, like that I can't even do it. That that you could hear blocks away. And if I didn't hear it, my friends heard it and said, "Hey, it's your dad just whistled," or something like that. That meant, dinner time or something like that. But
we had that,
You got to watch. I had to be out there and watch. And I see the other kids too. And if their parents aren't out watching, they're screwing around, or they're not being appropriate. And it's just a different kind of.
When we watch our kids, like you said, we were allowed to just go. And I remember when the Lion Girls were taken in Maryland. That's where I was raised. And it was the very first time that it became a real public national thing, because kids weren't taken till then. And suddenly all the rules began to change. I know for social media, people have to be really careful about, is that a real person or is that a false Facebook front? Okay, so Brad said something about, I forgot about Tron. Did you watch Tron or anything like that when you were growing up, Scott? I'm going to try to let Brad in.
We saw Tron, and so when we were riding our bikes, I just remember each of us had these little miniature Frisbees, probably no bigger than the palm of our hand.
Mm-hmm.
And those were our discs that we were like chucking at each other, as we were riding past in our bikes and things.
I'm listening. I'm just trying to get Brad in here too, because he has a lot of thoughts about Tron. It's not happening. All right. He's rebooting. He just told me. Well, here's the thing. When we talk about Star Wars and movies and videos and kind of how our kids were shaped by them, I don't know if anybody else is listening and you could either see in your own mind and self and story how you were shaped by video games, kind of log on here or make a comment, or if you have kids who were shaped by videos. Like you just mentioned with Disney, suddenly there's a authority on the TV that's saying, here's how you could be. And your parents are saying, no, we're not talking that way. And it's a whole, like another battle because all of their buddies are also watching it.
Yeah.
Has that happened to anybody else? No comment, Chet. Okay. Oh, wait, here we go. Yep, me too. Okay. So let me ask you this. I know we're going to talk about video games next time on our next Blab. And Brad is, hold on, desperately trying to get in here. I'm going to mute. I think the biggest point we want to make with respect to videos and Star Wars and how movies changed was really the idea that science fiction became real. Jim mentioned about possibility, and you even mentioned your kids, this idea of suddenly the world was bigger, like little mini discs that you made to throw each other when you played Tron. Or, I remember having those paper tubes, those wrapping paper tubes, and my kids were like, Jedi, they'd color them. This was before Hasbro made actual lightsabers.
The Nerf ones,
The Nerf ones, right. And so play suddenly became mimicking these science fiction movies and these futurist movies, and they could see themselves in a role because, as Brad said earlier, it had a lot to do with kids overcoming adults who were mean or evil, not unlike Harry Potter. And so their pretending became far more engaged in fantasy than we ever did. I mean, we played Smokey and the Bandits, or we played Cowboys and Indians, or House, Mm-hmm. Brad went on air. Okay. Try in here, buddy. There he is! Yay! So that's Brad back. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
I forgot about Tron. I think, Scott, that is awesome. You're running around playing with that had a huge influence as well. Science fiction started to go mainstream, and everybody was doing it. It wasn't just, the Dungeons and Dragons geeks. It was everybody. Am I right?
Yeah. But I wouldn't, for me, it was, as far as I can remember, it was never, I guess whatever the new thing was out, we played that for a while, and then it didn't really, it was something to pass the time by. It wasn't, we weren't, I'm trying to think a word for it, but we weren't, like like when Rocky came out or Karate Kid came out. You know, I remember a bunch of my friends and stuff. We all started doing karate or taking karate classes and stuff like that, and everyone thought they were, you know, some karate master or something. You know, but yeah, but
That's awesome.
yeah, just never mind.
Well, I like what you said about the Disney. I can't stand Disney shows because they teach the kids to talk back. And if you notice in the Disney shows, the parents are always idiots. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's not how you. Yeah. Don't you agree, Susie?
I do agree. I'm still looking for that Star Wars picture of my kids. To me, and again, we'll get more into that when we talk about the child-centric parenting and all that, because I do think the media has changed the way our kids not just view themselves and the world, but certainly their elders, their parents, the authorities in their life. Go back to that comment I made about question authority. That's kind of the mantra they cut their teeth on. And when you think about the movies, there was always rebellion against authority that was, you know, that the stars and the heroes had. So how do you navigate that with respect to the way our kids and our millennials were taught about authority? What do you think, Brad?
Well, if you go back to Star Wars, what was Luke Skywalker trying to do? He couldn't stand being in his backwater, planet, small town America. And he wanted adventure. He wanted to get out. And he was a kid and nobody listened to him. And all of a sudden, this Jedi comes along and says, you're part of a secret order. Your father was a Jedi, and this mystique built, as Joseph Campbell started talking about it, hero's journey. So here's this kid thrust into a battle, and he happens to win it just by not using technology, but using his intuition.
Okay.
That's what millennials were raised on. Every movie, television, and storyline, from Terminator to Back to the Future to The Hobbit to even Avatar. So I don't want to be in this reality.
So let me create a new one. And I think that's shaping our millennials today in some really good ways and in some really difficult ways. There is this idea of, I want to reshape reality, and we want that. We want possibility thinking, but where are the parameters? Where are the barriers? Where are the boundaries?
And they can't, because the digital revolution has given them the opportunity to do just that. And they kind of ignore the boomer world as much as they can.
I'm going to show you this, Brad. You'll laugh now. This is, let's see if you can make you see this. This is our kids dressed up as Star Wars kids. You can see Zach here as Han Solo in the black vest, our daughter as Princess Leia, and then our little one is R2-D2, so I'll have to post that. But that was what we did, that was their heroes. And it was really funny because they were our heroes, it was almost like they were co-opting our generation, our life.
Yeah. What was a rebel team, a ragtag team of rebels that had this superpower, the secret, the Jedis, and it became such an amazing influence that the IRS has reported on tax returns the highest and fastest growing religion that people fill out is Jedi Knight, or Jedi, the religion.
That's hysterical. All right, so we're getting to, I did not know that. I really didn't. We're getting to the end of our time here. I want to make sure we cover some of the things that you really feel strongly about, Brad, in terms of your experience of understanding millennials through movies like Star Wars, like the robotic hands, like the holograms, all the things that we thought were so outside the limit that became almost the norm for our kids. I mean, for millennials today. Any other thoughts there?
Right. You were breaking up a little bit. I barely heard you. But I think you were saying it affected our kids in such a profound way. And if you notice, Gen X, by the way, was the first latchkey kids. And, the divorce was becoming common and living in, what do they call these areas that were built up, developments. And all of a sudden, they could play Luke Skywalker, and they had the toys. And Gen X actually got a taste of this. And then it led into video games, which we're going to talk about on our next Blab.
Right. We're losing our connection. I'm going to go ahead and have us wind up here. Scott, thanks for joining us. Jim, who else is up here? A couple other people we couldn't quite get in. Thank you for being on. If you want to post a question, I think I've got Gord. I've got Yusef. Sorry we couldn't pick you up either, Yusef. We'll kind of work on that again. And we will look forward to seeing you on our next Blab, which is when, Brad?
That'll be in about 20 minutes at 2:05, 15 minutes.
2:05. And we'll be talking about video games. So hop back on with us, and thanks for joining us.
All right,
Thanks everybody. Thanks, Scott, for all your insight. You bet. Take care, everybody.